Hi, my name is Mr. Brame, and I'm here to talk to you about a book that I read recently. Now, you might not know me. I'm a 40-year-old man. I've been around for a really long time. Over the course of my entire life, from high school to college to marrying my wife to having a kid, there's been one band that's been with me that entire time, a band I've listened to over and over and over. That band is the Rolling Stones. At the center of that band, the #1 songwriter, the #1 guitarist, is a guy named Keith Richards. He's not only a member of the Rolling Stones, in a lot of people's opinion, he's the best guitar player in the entire world. For these reasons, I read a book called Life. This is an autobiography of Mr. Keith Richards that he wrote and published in 2010 in the United States. If you like music, if you like to read, then this is the book for you for three main reasons. First reason is Keith Richards talks a lot about the history of the Rolling Stones, a group that he formed and that he led for a really long time. In this book, Keith Richards also talks about blues, jazz, and other American music and the effect that American music had on him. Finally, in this book, Keith is very honest about his own drug abuse and his recovery over the course of his lifetime. So the first reason why I think you should read this book is that Keith Richards tells a lot of stories about the Rolling Stones. He talks about how the Stones were founded and created. Keith met the lead singer named Mick Jagger. In middle school, they eventually met a bass player and a drummer and another guitar player, and they have toured the world, all 7 continents, over and over and over, around and around and around, over the last 6 decades. It's been a really long time. You care about music? How about some of these stories? Did you know that the Rolling Stones, when they first came out in England, were so popular that the girls in the audience would cheer so loud that the Stones could not even hear themselves play on stage? Even though they'd be standing right in front of their amplifier, they couldn't hear it because the crowd was so loud, screaming and yelling. They loved them so much. Secondly, when the Stones toured the United States, specifically the southern part of the United States, like Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee, the police harassed the Stones really badly. They harassed them for having long hair, called them girls a lot, and they arrested them for wearing crazy clothes that they didn't wear in the South. Third thing is, the Rolling Stones recorded their most famous album, an album called Exile on Main Street, when they were exiled in France. The reason why they were in France and not their native England was because they owed the English government so much tax money they couldn't come back because they'd either be arrested or they'd have to pay millions and millions and millions of English pounds. The second reason why I think you should read Life by Keith Richards is that Keith Richards talks really creatively about how much he loves American music, specifically jazz and blues. And the American music that he loved affected his own music. Keith Richards listened to a lot of blues. He listened to a guy named Muddy Waters and a guy named John Lee Hooker. He would buy records and listen to those records over and over and over. And when he listened to those records, he wanted to learn how to play just like those guys. That's important to me because I did the same thing. I listened to those old blues records and tried to play like those guys, and I also listened to Keith Richards records and tried to play like him. Another thing is, Keith Richards played in a lot of weird tunings, open E and open G and open A. I learned for the first time that those tunings came from banjo tunings originally. Banjo companies went and made electric guitars, but they tuned the guitars in the same way as the banjos. And the people that bought them just kept them those weird tunings. And they learned how to play a lot of different types of music, a lot of different types of styles based on those different tunings. The third reason why you might want to read Life by Keith Richards is because Keith is very honest about his own drug abuse and drug recovery over the course of his lifetime. Specifically, he talks about the fact that drugs made his life miserable. He lost many relationships and he lost a marriage because of heroin. In fact, he had a little son that he put at risk because he was so into drugs. This reads like a cautionary tale in a way. A cautionary tale for somebody not to do drugs because drugs destroy you. In conclusion, I think you should read this book, Life by Keith Richards, for 3 reasons. He tells a lot of great stories of the Rolling Stones. He talks a lot about American music, and the book reads kind of like a cautionary tale on why you don't want to do drugs. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would recommend it, especially to people who like to read autobiographies. Even if you don't like rock and roll music, Keith Richards' autobiography is interesting because he tells fascinating stories And he has opinions on music, politics, and history. A bunch of different opinions, a bunch of different stories on things all across the board. He's got really funny, really good tales, really good stories that would make any reader stay on the edge of their seat. However, I would say because there's a lot of stuff about drug abuse and there's a little bit of stuff about sex and rock and roll in the 60s, this is not for junior high schoolers or elementary schoolers. I would say it'd be for high school students and adults. So for those reasons, I hope you enjoyed my presentation on Keith Richards' life. Have a good day.